I am declaring this a virus-free show. We're going to talk about other stories. It's hard to remember, but 6 weeks ago or more, we had stories that were of monumental importance to this country and had to do with preservation of liberty, of the rule of law, and all has been consumed by the coronavirus. So today we're talking about other very, very important things also happening in America. I want to start with Attorney General Barr had an interview in which he was talking about the two things that matter a lot, and I want to remind all of us where we are on those. One is President Trump had made a decision to fire Michael Atkinson, an inspector general. And of course, immediately the left assumed there was something really nefarious ongoing and must have an investigation. He can't go firing this person. And Attorney General Barr weighed in, and I want to just share that because I think it's important to understand that just because the left complains about something being biased or bigoted doesn't mean that it is. And also the Attorney General Barr did not have to weigh in on this at all, but he spoke last Thursday and actually said that President Trump did the right thing, firing Michael Atkinson, who was the Inspector General for the U.S. Intelligence Committee. And among the reasons that was a right decision, according to Attorney General Barr, is that Atkinson failed to follow instructions from the Department of Justice about permitting people to submit a complaint, a whistleblower complaint that was based on hearsay. The department said that's actually not the basis. That's not what, you need to have complaints that are going to be considered whistleblower to be of first, of something that was actually witnessed by the person, rather than something that was that was secondhand or hearsay. And then he just said this is Attorney General Barr said Atkinson is obliged to follow the interpretation of the Department of Justice, and he ignored it. And I do want to say, I think this whole Inspector General, the existence of Inspector Generals, is a wonderful and important thing. And I'm going to ask, we have joining us, as you heard at the beginning of the show, Sidney Powell. She may have a different view, but the role of Inspector General is a great thing. It's a good thing, but it does not mean that someone who's become Inspector General simply has the right to play good cop when they want to, or make decisions inconsistent with what the law requires. Also, Attorney General Barr, in activities we have not been talking about in weeks, but they still really matter to America. You likely recall the Durham investigation is ongoing. The U.S. Attorney Durham is looking into the entire Trump-Russia collusion hoax and trying to figure out, as Attorney General Barr said, he's not doing this investigation in order to write papers and present opinions. He is investigating to determine if crimes occurred, and if they did, to decide whether to seek prosecution. The statement that Attorney General Barr made in an interview with Laura Ingraham, which really caught a lot of people's attention, was he said, of the Durham investigation, Barr said, evidence shows that we're not dealing with just mistakes or sloppiness. A lot of people in watching and trying to observe what's happening with the FBI, Department of Justice, the entire Trump-Russia collusion story, were critical, saying, this is a nitpicking. You're not this is your Monday morning quarterbacking, looking at the conduct of months and months of investigations. And Barr is trying to say this is not someone who forgot to put a period at the end of the sentence or use poor grammar. These are his words. We're not talking about just mistakes or sloppiness. He says, my own view is that the evidence shows we're not dealing with just mistakes or sloppiness, but there was something far more troubling here, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. And if people broke the law, and we can establish that with the evidence, they will be prosecuted. People, what we used to talk about just a few short weeks ago, still these stories, these issues have monumental importance from the perspective of trying to perpetuate in America a system of justice that is reliable, a rule of law that applies equally to everyone, that the notion that inside what appears to have occurred inside the FBI and the Department of Justice was an utter determination to go after the political enemy of the then incumbent administration, and even after President Trump became president, to continue going after him for political purposes. These are things that we criticize when they happen in third world countries. These are things that we criticize when they happen in nefarious instances of Germany. You think of the former Russian satellite countries and all the intrigue. These have no place in America, this kind of conduct. And the idea that John Durham is going to get to the bottom of it, I'm still very hopeful that happens. One last thing in the first 5, and then we'll turn talking to our friend Sidney Powell. Several articles out, and they are available on our website, americacanwetalk.org, on the homepage under shows, drop down list of links. One article is entitled "The 13 Revelations Showing that the FBI Never Really Had a Russia Collusion Case to Begin With." And the reason I think this is so important is that we're not just looking at whether the case was mishandled and that, accusations were unjustified or that proper procedure wasn't followed. What is coming to light and being claimed by people who are following this very closely is that enough things were known that the FBI never really had a basis to start the collusion case at all. Didn't have a basis to even start the investigation that led us into the 3-year headline-filling witch hunt level attack on President Trump and his entire administration. There are actually 2 good pieces attached to on our website that you can read. They go into great detail explaining why, as people are becoming more aware of the evidence, there never was a reason. There was no basis for what the FBI chose to do in initiating an investigation of candidate Trump and then President Trump for Trump-Russia collusion. And that, my friends, is today's First 5.